So, hi Helen.
Hi, how are you? Good to see you all.
Yeah, so a quick introduction from me to Helen. Helen Shears has been living and working in Nicaragua for 25 years. She's going to describe her work with AMCC in training women in non-traditional trade skills, non-traditional for women, I believe. And the revival of earth building and bringing the two together with new build and conservation techniques. I was reading in the general news this week how the pandemic has impacted significantly more on women's employment or unemployment in the world, and with the associated losses of income and status more heavily impacting on women. So the AMCC project, which has been developing over the past 33 years, is hugely significant, and it encompasses women's self-sufficiency and self-determination, as well as local control of sustainability, sustainable development and community. So it should be a model project for anywhere in the world. So here's Helen.
So I just press this, do I? Is that right?
Hi, Helen. Am I sharing your presentation for you? Yeah.
No, I was going to do it, wasn't I?
Oh, you're going to do it?
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. Is that right? How am I?
Did you see the red line and the icon at the bottom?
Yeah, I've taken that off, and I'm opening that. Is that right?
Yeah. Click where it says your entire screen and click share, and then you can open your presentation.
Oh, can you? Have I got that? I don't know. Hang on. Oh, where am I supposed to go? Sorry.
So So once you click that icon with the red line through, yeah?
Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah. So what's it come up with now? The pop-up box.
So you got various pictures of you.
Yeah. So click on that.
Oh, fine.
And then click on the blue share button.
Oh, fine. Good.
Brilliant.
And then open my thing.
Yeah. Yep, that's all. We can see that now. So.
Oh, great.
Full screen and then over to you. Thank you very much.
Okay. So I can start now?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so good to be here and listen to and see some of these amazing presentations that I've been able to have snippets of, but I hope to be able to have the recording and catch up with what I've missed. And I've seen some of the similar climates and some things that we use in Nicaragua or exploring as well. So what my talk is about, how the roles of young women, dedicated training and climate change adaptation support the earth building revival in Nicaragua. This presentation is to talk mostly about the recent international collaborative project, which took place this year with AMCC in Nicaragua and with B. Rowan from Strawbuild UK, which some of you will know. We made a short film, which some of you will have seen, which shows the value of a supportive environment and a training centre for young women, heritage crafts and the relationship between them. Also, there was the exchange visit with B, which was short but productive, demonstrating the commitment of the AMCC to continue innovation, research and development in the field of earth building through ongoing experiments with her and in other networks who have developed online workshops and presentations as well in this pandemic. We're all on a big learning curve. I've worked at, like Sarah said, at AMCC since 1994. Sorry, I'm just trying to do my technology as well. More recently in an advisory role, I went as a carpenter. I became interested in promoting earth building, particularly with the organisation from 2006, when we met the architect Dulce Maria Guillen, who's Nicaraguan and has been pioneering improved adobe in private and municipal projects since she graduated at the end of the 90s. AMCC from 2012 has been self-building its own premises with students and collaborators and has been active in the Proterra and Mesoamerica networks. If anybody's interested in those links, I can share them too, both the American continents and Spain and Portugal, and also as a Mesoamerican, which is the Mexico and Central America. AMCC has developed by collaborating always with local and international technical trainers, development workers, volunteers and brigade workers since it was founded in 1987. So there's a long history of collaboration. There are two main programs, the Youth Initiative Program, women's rights courses for young women, and then the Women's Technical Training School, where I've been mainly. This covers various skill areas. This year, there's been taster courses for young people, introductory carpentry, artisanal silo making for grain storage, photovoltaic solar energy courses, and of course the ones on earth building techniques and revival, which is also part of a new phase of wider community work. Up until 2018, there'd been month-long annual natural building courses, which opened the doors to skill sharing with collaborators. It has been a difficult 2 years due to the social political crisis and others piled on top. So these courses aren't running at the moment, which is a great shame, but we're seeing each other online. Next. So, heritage at risk, climate change challenge to earth building in the face of increasing numbers and strengths of hurricanes, rain and floods, as you can see in this picture. And you can see the contrast between the adobe buildings and obviously then the concrete and industrial materials imported and so invasive, as we all know, in so many parts of the world. Recent events, you may have all heard, Nicaragua, Honduras and Guatemala has been just devastated by two recent hurricanes, Eta and Iota, which hit in a space of 2 weeks. Iota was rated as one of the worst ever recorded, like Hurricane Mitch in 1998, probably worse, affecting different regions. The full damage and loss is still to be reported, so we're still waiting to hear and register and see what reconstruction work will take place and what we can do as part of that. So as part of this project that I'm going to talk about, which was this collaboration, at the same time we were running our usual activities parallel to, so just to give you a bit of a broader idea of what AMCC has been doing recently. This is a training trainers program, which I'm part of, and I lead with another colleague and partner. It started in January. It's a year long, and so there's group sessions and individual sessions all per course. 12 technical trainers who I with particularly, and then there are another 5 coordinators who are part of the sexual and reproductive rights training for new groups of girls from age 12 upwards. They all took part in the focal groups of the research of the project that we did, together with visiting trainers to the annual courses, and if this all went virtual, of course, in March. There are very varied educational levels and experiences, so it's a very interesting process. Also, rural and urban mix, the support of the family and community to find alternative approaches to learning is very important. Particularly about gender, violence and their rights is what can be found at AMCC, which is a safe space to be able to experiment in non-traditional skill areas for women, some going on to study in male-dominated technical educational centres, colleagues and universities. So we hope to be able to kind of support them through those transitions. Also, young boys come onto our courses. There's a small percentage, but we're positively trying to support women, and they bring along their brothers and cousins, and so they're great. So they integrate and learn, go on a very interesting journey themselves. Very few young people can access university, and especially for women, even harder to find work opportunities in their career paths. But there's a few out there, obviously, and they come back to us later and get involved in things, which is great. Gender violence has been exacerbated by the crises, as well as like Sarah's mentioning about everything. All the inequalities are being being more exaggerated, and access to information for women is a key to working on self-esteem, identity, communication in the family, amongst other important topics for girls and young women, and for the communities in general. Resilience is obviously a big word at the moment. Next. So this is just a photograph just to show one of the new trainers with her group on a introductory 3-month course in carpentry, which started in February and had to be suspended in March and then carried on in August. And when they finish that, they can go on to complete the 10 months to get a basic level if they find that want to develop their skills more. So in the earth building team, we have 4 women at the moment, and another one has joined recently, I think. And so as part of the training in all the different skill areas, they split into trades and prepare their courses, organising practice sessions and skill sharing between themselves while writing or updating courses. Likewise, on the annual courses, there's an emphasis on tests and experiments to ensure good practice and quality building materials. The Caracas test, which I think many of you know, and others adapted to the Central American context. The natural and earth building courses are adapted to the target group, the communities and houses where the courses will be held, doing soil tests on local soils prior to the courses. Now, this is part of the film which we made in San Andres. There's a shot of the church being painted and having its lime washing, 2-yearly lime washing maintenance. This we were able to film, and Nicaragua, like obviously many parts of the world, has many fine examples of heritage buildings in its colonial cities and in rural areas, some more restored than others. This is a church which is a local heritage building in this community, of 150 to 200 years old, we think. We didn't have an exact date, which was restored in 2016. The sisters who were the researchers for the film, the local researchers for the participatory research process, influenced the church community in this 2016 with their proposal of saving it from being repaired with cement by convincing people that restoring with earth and other local materials would be more viable, sustainable and economic. People were easily convinced, and the work went on for 6 weeks with 79 people participating in different large groups. The sisters' leadership has continued to develop, and they went on to organise other work days and the AMCC courses on other houses. Next. This is one of the houses in the same community where a course was held in 2018. And it shows the kind of decorative work that is done to protect the walls and encouraging people to take a more creative and positive view of earth building as a sustainable option. This especially for a community that depends on their local economy and is not easily accessible either. The belief that an earth building is temporary or obsolete until people can afford those industrial imported materials like we know about, in spite of the heritage tradition of earth, is which is found in both larger and smaller buildings. It's still out there on the edge, waiting to move in when people can afford it. So we're trying to fight against that pressure. The tradition has been almost lost and degraded at all levels in so many parts of the country. And then because of these major hurricanes and things more recently, this will be a very difficult job to carry on with now, although we will be out there doing what we can. Except in the north region where we are, it's called Las Segovias, which comprises of 3 different departments. There are nearly 70% of housing is still being built in earth, so that's encouraging, but it just needs to be really well built. Some are and some aren't. Really depends on so many factors, obviously. Women are able to develop new technical skills and get other people involved from their families in small building improvement and innovative projects in their communities. And this was another course which was going on while we were doing the filming, so we managed to go up there, and Bea joined us for that too, with 2 new trainers. That's their first course they were teaching, and for women from the community who were interested in developing their skills. Glenda's house, this is Glenda, was re-rendered and plastered by the group during the course, also decorating it with a mural to display to the community the benefits and creativity of earth building and maintenance. There will be a cob bench building course this month for the same group in another house. If work is able to continue next year or beyond, as there are many pressures at the moment, a building course is proposed, as we really want to do some building in a community, but we've had to sort of get people really interested just by doing this hands-on plastering and maintenance, and this has been a way to sort of get people to kind of become interested in reviving their skills. So to work closely with builders to skill share and introduce the improved and reinforced Adobe techniques particularly, and others already used in the region and displayed in our premises. In El Salvador, there is already legislation that was approved in June 2014 for improved and reinforced Adobe. So this serves as a guide and a model for all earth builders, engineers and architects in the region. So that's something, it's a reference point, but Nicaragua is a long way away, although there are obviously people trying to work on it. It takes time to establish a group in a new community for AMCC, but there are many key leaders who work between communities and can influence. So we managed to work between different communities. But then, so building the relationship takes a while. Organising all the conditions needed to run the course, transport to difficult areas to get to, and adapting to different community activities is always a challenge. Many women are busy with other domestic and agricultural tasks, so are not always that free, even though they would love to be. So B. Rowan came and visited us in March, which was great, which we didn't know it was actually going to be possible, but it did happen. She was the first collaborator since early 2018 to come to AMCC because of so many activities were suspended. After 20 years of her own interest in AMCC and being involved in the Sheffield Brigade, which came and worked on the post-Hurricane Mitch fundraising towards reconstruction building project, then we finally met in person at the Clay Fest in Cat last year. So these Clay Fests are great for meeting people. Her work with, as we know, her work with lime stabilized soil with small amounts of lime to future-proof, as we call it, earth building, which she has worked on internationally. As part of the project, the idea was to look at this in the Nicaraguan context, being so vulnerable to changing climates of hurricanes, prolonged rains and flood events, as well as drought. The opportunity to work together came about as part of the Crafting Futures grant scheme with the 2019 call, which is supported by British Council and Crafts Council, which specifically called for applicants to do international collaborative projects and research about crafting crisis. So this exchange, I said, took part in March. B had recently returned from working in Pakistan and Nepal, and unfortunately in Nicaragua, her visit was cut short and had other work postponed by the pandemic. The brief intensive visit enabled her to have first-hand experience of AMCC, to do some initial research into local materials, including soils and used in AMCC and surrounding communities. She also went to a lime kiln, saw the production process and saw what other limes were available and found that they were cheap and easily accessible and responded well to tests. B was able to demonstrate her lime stabilized soil method for testing of clay content and calculating proportions of lime to use strength and mixes in the face of flooding and hurricanes. This is measured in linear shrinkage boxes, the soil that we are testing, you can see in the photographs, and then they're dried. We dried them in an oven, and then with the tables in the B. Rowan and Stafford Holmes manual, we managed to make various different samples, which were then cured and dried, and then immersed, and then dried, and then subjected to compression tests. So then we had to go remote. This was happening remotely, of course. So these photographs, as you see like this on the screen, were shared amongst everyone who was working at home, and with B, of course, to follow instructions of how best to continue and how the results were working. Of 10 samples, we had very good results. We had 2 that which survived the immersion very well, and others as well, but the 2 went on to pass the compression tests that we went on to do. So this is a dry compressive test that we did on a trial sample mix with a kind of lime that we got. It's actually brought this in from Managua, which was we're trying out different sorts of limes as well. 1 part of lime to 8 parts of soil. Other lime we did try, which was more readily available and quite cheap, and so it's good to calculate exactly, so the less you have to spend on lime, the better, or and then just get it right to the amount of clay. So here you can see where we set up a compression test scales with a pillar drill. So there, I won't read it all, but there is the whole first report of one of the first examples, where the whole process of how we did the test and what ratios we used, and in this case there was no other sand or aggregate or pozzolan used in these particular successful tests. Immersed for 3 weeks, and then we did a 2 different kinds of sandwich test, and then the panometric test, and they came up. Oops, sorry. They came up to 7.5 compressive strength newtons or millimeters squared. So that was actually very, very, very surprising and very good. We were very satisfied. But obviously, these are field tests, and we will try and replicate this in a lab in Managua. We're in touch with them for next year at some point to be able to do this with different kinds of molds according to their requirements. Nearly finishing. Sorry about this. Just get there. Likewise, the second batch is being subjected to the different tests. These are ones that have just come out of immersion. So you can see there's 1 or 2 have a softer, and the rest are doing pretty well. We don't know we haven't had all the results come in, although I think they've done their compression tests. So we're yet to get the full results, but I think there's at least 1 or 2 successful soils. So we're happy with that, and mixes. So here they're doing the compression test there. This is in November, so these are very recent photographs that are coming through. So it's all work in process. A short, visit, a small amount of time was able to inspire this team to keep going, and it's going to be very interesting, I think, because I think that'll be very successful for all elements of building, whether the foundations, walls, plasters, to make them more waterproof and strengthen their mixes. There is a small follow-on grant from the Crafting Futures, because of course we came up against the pandemic, and then we had an addendum, and so it's been going on all year, which in fact was to our benefit, because otherwise we wouldn't have been able to carry on with the tests and have so many good results, because really these results take a year or so to kick in, really, with such exciting research and investigation, and time to experiment. So this will conclude experiments and laboratory tests and translation of some of the manual, which ideally we'd like to translate it all, but that's very expensive. So if there are any people who have good contacts with finding translation or funds or other such funds for teaching materials, that would be really great, because I think for the Spanish-speaking networks, it'll be so interesting. We've already got interest from 2 or 3 architects in Nicaragua to find out more about lime stabilizing soils. There is great use of lime in Nicaragua, and all different the heritage methods, and a lot of investigation could be put into this, but it obviously needs time, and that time means money. But anyway, for this small grant, we will carry on with our laboratory tests and do some disseminations, such as these, do other presentations. And we hope this has illustrated how building young women's confidence and skills inherently links to leadership in revival of earth building, particularly in northern rural Nicaragua. I've mentioned some of the challenges and developments and impacts. How international networking fosters innovation, including the recent Nicaragua-UK collaboration through the Crafting Futures grant scheme. For reconstruction, there's a huge amount of work to come up, so we have to see where and how that can be organised at least locally for our groups. Or we sometimes go and work in other parts of Nicaragua. How during the recent pandemic and other ongoing crises, AMCC has survived to continue courses on site in nearby communities. It has also carried on with site tests on local soils and lime. It shows the importance of sharing presentations and participating in events such as these online and in the different networks has been essential to continue until we can do hands-on and group work again. The results of the initial collaboration with B confirm the relevance and value in exploring a possible future training partnership to contribute to heritage at risk earth building in the region. We call for developing further links between the AMCC Training Centre in Nicaragua, Ibucay, and beyond, especially as once again we'll be involved in post-hurricane reconstruction and training projects. So anyone who wants to get on board, we're out there. Thank you very much. And there's a link there to the webpage, and I can give you any more links if anyone is interested in anything I've mentioned. Do I just stop now?
Yes, I think it is the answer. That was a fantastic talk, Helen. And I think for those who haven't seen it, there is a link in the reception page to a really rather beautiful film of the work that's been going on in Nicaragua. I think we do hear your appeal there to Ibucay for contact and liaison. There's not a presentation this year about it, but we have got project work going on with funding from the Tudor Trust around issues about gender and empowerment. And maybe next year Becky might present on that as well. And